In my last Oathbreaker build, I talked about how great it is to combine the Paladin with the Warlock because the Pack Blade stacked with martial weapons extra attack. Well, yeah, it's confirmed that that's a bug and it will be eventually patched out. So this is my new Oathbreaker build, the Oathbreaker Assassin. I hope you enjoy. Okay guys, so depending on when you want to break your oath, keep in mind that later on in Act 3, you will get gear that is going to allow you to respec and put your stats in better things depending on how you want to build your character. As an Oathbreaker, you will have to A, renew your oath, which costs 1,000 gold, and then you will have to break it once more. Oathbreakers are special because they are a subclass that requires in-game mechanics. You cannot simply respec it at any time you want, so it is very important that when you do your stats, you keep that in mind. For this build particularly, until Act 3 when you can get Gauntlets of the Giant, which gives you base 23 strength, currently we're going to be going for Dex, and it's a really fun build that you can use all the way up until you get those Gauntlets to respec with later on. If you use the hag hair to increase your dexterity to 18 base, keep in mind that when you go to level up, you can get the max dexterity right away. I currently have it in constitution on this character, which is why my constitution is 15, so I'll have base 16 constitution with the hag hair, so I can have a little bit more HP. But if you're not using the hag hair, keep in mind you will have one attribute point that is going to be a little bit less depending on how you build your character. Personally, this is the way I like to go, because as soon as you level up at level 4, you'll be able to get to 18 dexterity and 16 charisma, which is going to be pretty nice for those ability modifiers. When it comes to your skill proficiencies, honestly pick whatever you want. I like having a little bit in athletics just to be able to shove people, but you can put whatever you want here, it's going to be up to you. At level 2, Paladins don't actually gain the ability to have 2-weapon fighting, which is okay because we have ways to mitigate that with gear. So here, you're going to want to choose defense. It's the only one that's going to give you any value. You are going to be dual wielding as a spec. Technically, you could go sword and shield if you really wanted to, but the damage is going to really fall off severely if you do that. However, I do have an item in case you do want to do sword and shield. There is a shield later on we'll talk about you can use. But if you do plan a dual wield, I would say go defense. +1 AC is never a bad thing. Spell wise, pick whatever spells you want at level 2. You're not going to really be blessing that much since you are going to be in the midst of combat, so save that for someone else in your party. Some other spells that are really nice though. I do like Thunderous Smite because I like the ability to knock people back and knock them prone. I'm not a big fan on Searing Smite, however, this is decent because it does do damage every turn. It is a concentration though, so keep that in mind. Pick whatever you want here. I'm going to drop Cure Wounds to add Thunderous Smite. I don't like Compelled Duel. I don't think it's that great of a spell, so I'm going to drop that. And you could do Shield of Faith, which you don't need because of armor, but it's nice to have in case you want to use this before you get the armor needed. But pick whatever spells you want. Okay, at level 3 Oathbreaker, you get some more fun abilities. You now gain Divine Health that all Paladins gain, so you can no longer be affected by diseases. You gain Dreadful Aspect, which is pretty cool because it's a nice way to just pretty much frighten everyone near you when needed. Control Undead. In Act 2, there's a ton of undead, so this is actually going to be really useful. Inflict Wounds is okay. I wish it didn't take an action to do. However, because you are dual wielding and you will have extra bonus actions to attack, using this is more viable than ever before. And Hellish Rebuke is just a way to do damage on a reaction. Keep in mind with the spec though, you're not going to have max spell slots, so you do want to save your spell slots for when you know you need burst damage in my opinion. Okay, so at level 4 Oathbreaker, you are going to gain some more lay on hand charges, which is nice so you can heal yourself without using a spell. And you gain your first feat here. We're going ability improvement. We're going to get our dexterity to 18 and our charisma to 16. Alright, level 5 Oathbreaker is when the build really starts to come together a little bit more. This is when you gain extra attack, which is nice because now when you use the attack action, you can attack twice. You gain some more spell slots, level 2 spell slots to be specific, and you get some upgraded spells, which is nice. We're going to talk about the Oathbreaker spell specifically because Darkness is going to be huge for this build. We'll talk about Darkness in a little bit. Crown of Madness is nice, but really you're going to use your concentration mainly for Darkness with this build. Okay, at level 6, you have some choices here. Do you want to continue to go down the Paladin route? At level 6, you do gain Aura of Protection, which is going to give you saving throws additional equal to your Charisma bonus. Because our Charisma is 16, we'll have +3 to all saving throws, and this will affect allies as well within the radius of 10 feet, which is really nice. That way your allies can also gain that benefit. Or you can start going down the rogue tree to try to unlock dual wielding as soon as possible, because as soon as you get the thief, that's when dual wielding really gets strong, because then you'll have 2 attacks with your offhand if you wanted. Personally, it's going to be up to you. I'd say if you really want to go for max damage right away, you do definitely want to unlock the extra bonus action. Having 2 bonus actions is really huge. So at level 6, I would say start going to rogue for at least 3 levels. And then here at a level 1 rogue, you also get to have some additional skill proficiencies. Again, pick whatever you like. It's going to be up to you. When it comes to your paladin stuff, I mean, you do have a lot of charisma, so having extra persuasion or intimidation and things like that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. If you plan to have your paladin be the rogue-esque type character, you know, having the extra sleight of hand and stealth would also be really nice. However, I don't think the stealth is going to be all that useful. Stealth in this game is pretty weak in combat due to the way it works. However, some people might find it to be useful to have. You already have +6 with this build anyway, so I'm saying it's not going to be that needed. I'd rather go with athletics to get that up to +4. And then the second one is going to be up to you. Pick whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and go with deception to get the +7. And then here you get to pick another one of these. I'm going to go acrobatics as well. Excuse me, rogue level 2 is nice because this is when you have bonus actions to hide, dash, or to disengage, which is really useful. Alright, and we are picking Thief as our subclass. I think having 2 bonus actions is just way too strong in this game. If you didn't have the second bonus action, more than likely I would say go with Assassin, but you do, and that second bonus action is going to be huge for dual wielding. So now you have a couple more choices. I'm going back to Paladin because I want to unlock Aura of Hate. The showcase of this build is going to go up to level 10. So if you would rather have the extra feat right away to get your dexterity maxed out, feel free to stay rogue. However, I personally like Aura of Hate. It's going to add a lot of additional damage to your attacks. So I'm going to try to get to level 7 Paladin as soon as possible. And again, at level 6 Paladin, you gain Aura of Protection, which is really nice. And at Paladin level 7, you gain Aura of Hate. This is equal to your charisma modifier. So you yourself, the paladin, will gain an additional 3 damage to every melee attack that you do. And because you are dual wielding, you're going to get 4 attacks every round, assuming you don't use the bonus actions for anything else. This will also affect additional undead or fiends in your party. So if you have a necromancer, or if you have any other type of character that can spawn zombies, spore druids for example, and fiends from warlocks when they summon their imps, that this will also be affected to do additional 3 damage. Keep in mind, this will also affect undead enemies as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind for Act 2 because there are a lot of undead enemies. But this will add a lot of damage to yourself, which is why we mainly use it. Alright guys, it is time to talk about gear. There are some pieces of gear in here that, in my opinion, are going to be 100% required that we're going to talk about first. And then there's the other pieces that aren't required but do make the build just run a little bit more efficiently. To start, the Eversight ring, in my opinion, is going to be a must-have for this build. Not only does this ring make you immune to regular blindness, it makes you immune to magical blindness as well. As an Oathbreaker, you gain the blindness spell as a concentration spell at level 5. You can use this offensively and defensively, and because of your Eversight ring, It's amazing. I'm going to showcase that in a little bit. To get this ring, you do have to actually go all the way inside of the little town right here. You see the House of Healing? Well, over here, a little bit to the west, is going to be the morgue. You want to come in the morgue right here in the map, go through, beat everyone there because there is a fight, and in the back room, there is going to be a chest that needs to be lockpicked. Get it from there. The other items, in my opinion, that are going to be 100% required is going to be the gloves. You gain the gloves of balanced hands here at Last Lights Inn. This gives you 2 weapon fighting. Normally when you dual wield, your offhand attack doesn't gain any benefit from your modifier. Because we have high dex, it would use dex now. So now, because our dex is 18, you gain +4 to your chance to hit and +4 damage. Well, with our R of Hate, which is affected by your charisma modifier, it adds another +3 damage on top of that. So no matter what, when you hit with your melee attacks, you're going to have +4 chance to hit and +7 damage when they actually do hit, which is pretty nice. These gloves right here are going to be sold by Quartermaster Tally. She's over here on my screen for some reason, but normally she would be right here on the map. She also sells a cape. She sells the Cloak of Protection, which just gives you +1 to AC and all saving throws. One of the best capes in the game. It's super good. Of course, if you are the Dark Urge, there is a cape that makes you go invisible, which would make this build even better. This character is not a Dark Urge, however, so he does not have that cape. Some other items you can gain from Last Lights Inn. If we come over here, if you did save the Tieflings in Act 1, you'll see Mattis right here. Mattis is great because he's going to sell you 2 items that specifically for this build could be really useful. He's going to sell you the Cloak of the Cunning Broom. This is great because you have 3 points in the Rogue, meaning you're a thief now, so you have 2 bonus actions. Anytime you disengage, it's going to give you the little like fog cloud. This counts as blinding enemies, so anything that's affected by that counts for the disengage. So because your spell slots are a little bit limited, this is a great way to obscure yourself or obscure enemies without actually using a spell slot, which is why I really like it. And with having 2 bonus actions, it's not that bad. He also sells a pair of boots. The evasive shoes give you +1 AC and +1 acrobatics. So if you wanted more AC with these boots and the other cape we talked about, you'd be at 21 AC, which is pretty nice to have as a dual wielder. Some other items that you can get for this build, the Dark Justigar's helmet and the Dark Justigar's half plate all come from the Temple of Shar. I'm not going to showcase exactly where to get those because I do think that's a pretty big story spoiler. However, go throughout the Gauntlet of Shar, make sure you do everything there and you'll get these. The helmet's great because you get +1 bonus to saving throws against spells, which is really huge. You also gain Covert Critical, so while obscured, meaning anytime you're like in darkness, you're sneaking, if you're inside that little fog cloud I talked about, or your own darkness spell, you're going to gain +1 chance to the crit. So like normally you would need the crit with a nat 20. Now you can crit whether you roll a 20 or a 19, which is really nice. And this gives you +1 to Constitution saving throws, which is cool because your darkness spell is concentration, so which uses your Constitution as a saving throw to make sure it doesn't break. So this helm's really nice for that. The chest piece gives you just advantage on stealth checks when you're obscured. Isn't that big of a deal, but it is there. It also gives you advantage on Constitution saving throw checks, which is even better. So your chance of having your concentration, your darkness being broken, I mean, it's going to be really hard to break that with this chest piece on top of your helm and everything else that we talked about earlier. This is also inside Shar's Gauntlet. It also gives you Shar's Aegis, which is really nice because it's a bonus action you can use once per long rest. It is a concentration spell, so if you have darkness up right here and you go to use this to increase the AC, it is actually going to break your darkness, so keep that in mind. But this is just another great way to give yourself 2 AC. Really nice if you do want the extra AC for this build. And if you go with the way to stack AC, I mean, you're looking at 23 AC, which is really, really nice. The items from Act 1 that I think are really useful is the Nightwalkers here. I talked about these boots in other videos, but these boots are so good. You're immune to entangled and webbed and snared, and you can't slip on grease or ice. That alone make these boots really fantastic, but you also gain the Misty Step spell that you can use once per short rest. That's huge because normally you don't gain Misty Step as an Oathbreaker Paladin, so now you can use it on short rest for even more mobility. Really, really fantastic. You get these from True Soul Nair, whether you do the quest or just let him die, you can loot it off his body inside the Grimforge. Really easy to get. And in Act 1, there is a ring, the Caustic Band. This just gives you +2 acidic damage all your weapon attacks, whether it's your melee weapons or ranged weapons. You get this from the little mushroom colony. There is a female dwarf inside the mushroom colony where like all the fungal people are that sells it. It's really cheap, only a couple hundred gold. It's definitely worth using if you don't have any other better rings. The neck piece, pick whatever you want. It's going to be up to you. I'm currently using the Amulet of the Branding, which gives you Brand of the Week. Basically, once per long rest, you make the enemy vulnerable to your slashing damage and piercing damage or bludgeoning, and because you're using 2 short swords, this just adds even more damage. The vendor inside the mountain pass that sells the Knife of the Undermountain King, if you kill her you can get that necklace. I don't remember if you can buy it or not. If you can buy it from her though, then feel free to buy it. But that vendor also sells this offhand like sword that we're going to use. This is really nice because this thing is fantastic. If you read, normally, when you need to crit, you can roll a 19. And when you do roll damage for 2 or less, the damage is actually re-rolled, taking the highest result. This thing is actually amazing because this stacks. So we talked about the helm earlier, giving you 1 less chance to crit. Well, your offhand can now crit if you roll an 18, 19, or 20, which is really nice because your offhand's going to have a 15% chance to crit now. It also gives you Shadow Blade, so you have advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscured targets when using this weapon. Well, with all the ways we know how to obscure ourselves, whether it's disengaging with the cloak, whether it's casting darkness with our spells, you have advantage on your attack rolls, so the game's going to roll 2 dice and take the higher dice. So your chance to crit with this weapon is actually going to be really big. The other weapon that we are going to use is the Justicar's Scimitar. This thing is actually amazing. So if you read, it gives you Shadow Blinding. If you attack with advantage, you have a chance to blind your target. That's fantastic. I don't know the actual percentage of blinding someone with this, but I have found throughout my playthroughs, it does happen pretty often, which is great because you're going to be in melee more than likely, so with them being blind, you're just not going to take melee damage. If you take a look at your actual skills here, you are part rogue, so you do want to do your sneak attack damage. You can only do sneak attack when you have advantage on the target, and you'll do 2d6 because you're only a level 3 rogue right now. So, and this does require an action to actually use, so I like having it just straight up automatically apply. That way I don't have to actually click it. If you want to make it a reaction, you can. I just like having the sneak attack damage apply whenever I want it. Definitely make sure your divine smites are on reaction so you can choose when to apply your divine smite damage as well. But this uses extra damage, and this is going to be nice because now anytime you have the ability to actually do sneak attack damage, you also have a chance to blind a target at the same time. This weapon is also weapon enchantment +2, so even more chance to hit, which is fantastic. And it has a actually fantastic unique skill. This thing is crazy. Shadow Soaked Blow. So, when you attack with this adds your proficiency bonus to the damage. Also, if the attack hits, you do additional 1d6 psychic damage. And it doesn't break concealment, which is just insane. So if you did have the Dark Urge Cloak and you were invisible, you could use this at an invisibility and still be invisible, which is, this thing is really good. It does a lot of damage. It recharges on a short rest, and I really, really like it. If you prefer to go the sword and board route, You can also use the Justicar's Great Shield, which is going to be great because you can use a reaction to knock the enemy prone from Shield Bash, but it also gives you Darkness Cloak. So on a short rest, you can create magical darkness immediately and attempt to hide. So another way to create darkness if you go the sword and board route. In order to actually get that shield and the Justicar's Scimitar, you do have to actually fight a specific fight in Shar's Temple. I am actually going to show where to do that here on the map. And in order to get the sword and shield we were talking about from Shar's Temple, you do want to come here on the map and you want to attack these rats. After you attack these rats, there will be an NPC that appears. Kill him and you can get the loot. The other weapons I think are going to be useful. The Hellfire Hand Crossbow is really nice because it's just a crossbow that has a chance to inflict burning whenever you're hiding or invisible. So it just adds even more to like being obscured, which is pretty nice. And then I have a hand crossbow for my offhand. So if I wanted to attack from range twice, I can with the offhand attack. You can get this hand crossbow +1 from pretty much any main vendor in Act 1. Damon, for example, sells it. You can reset his inventory by going to a long rest. The Hellfire hand crossbow, you need to defeat the demon inside Shar's Temple. You'll know what I'm talking about because Raphael will approach you before you actually go into the temple and talks about that demon. Okay, so I'm just going to showcase a little bit of how this build works while using it. And we're going to attack Balthazar here to showcase it. Oh, that was a crit. Heck yeah. I'm going to use Divine Smite level 2 since it was a crit to do extra damage. Which is really fantastic. And because I was hiding, this keeps me hidden because of that. So now I can attack him again. He has no idea what's happening, which is why I love the Shadow Soak Blade. Alright, now I don't want to actually use another Divine Smite level 2 because I actually only have one spell slot left for that. So you want to be careful. The reason it did that and didn't give me the action for Divine Smite level 1 is because I didn't actually have it set up to do that. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure your reactions are set up properly before doing combat. I would have killed him though if I actually would have used the Divine Smite rank 1, which is nice. I'm going to use my rank 1 Hellish Rebuke to kill him. So definitely make sure you have all your Divine Smites on reactions regardless. And before we continue, take a look at my damage here so you can see what I did to him in the opening. So, this is insane. So like, alright, so here we go from the very beginning. You saw how I opened on him. I did my opening, which also did the +7 damage and the +2 acidic damage because of Shadow Soaked Blue. This thing is huge, and it kept me hidden because it says it doesn't break concealment, which is really big. Because I got a crit on him, I could also do my Divine Smite, which did even more damage as well, which is really big. I mean, he took a ton of damage because of that. And because of that, I was able to open on him again, so I did damage with my main hand attack again, and you can see how like the charisma modifier from Aura Hate and stuff like that is being applied. The acidic damage again, some more damage from Divine Smite. All of that was on my opening. Like, and because I am dual wielding, you want to make sure you can toggle that on or off. If not, when you go to attack, you'll attack with your bonus action automatically. If you have it like this, where it's showing only one sword, it will only attack with your main hand, and then you have to manually choose to attack with your offhand. I like having it like this because then I have more control over my actions. So right now it's my turn, and I have one more bonus action for things I could do, and I have another attack that I can do with my main hand. I have Lay on Hands that I can't do because I already used my main action. I can't do any of my channel oaths because they are all main actions. So the options I have with my little bonus action is limited. However, I do have some things I can do. First off, I am going to use my bonus action to actually use Char's Aegis to give myself a little bit more AC just for this round. And I still have one more action because I do have my extra attack from being a level 5 paladin, which I'm going to go ahead and use now. So I'm going to go ahead and attack him. And now my turn is pretty much done, but I'm going to choose to go in a spot where I'm not going to get attacked by a lot of enemies. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to end my turn. These guys are all surprised though, because I did end up opening on them, which is really nice. So now I'm going to showcase the power of darkness, which is going to be really, really big. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to use my level 2 spell slot. It's the last one I have. You can see I have Shield of Faith to give me +2 to AC. So if I didn't want to use darkness, I would still have additional 2 AC at 21 AC right now. But in this case, I want to showcase the power of darkness. So I'm going to use this. So now they're all going to be blinded, but I'm not. I still have my offhand attacks I could do. I could attack from ranged if I wanted because I have my 2 crossbows. Or I could attack with melee. We're going to go with melee and we're going to try to finish him off. So I could use Divine Smite, but I'm not going to because I do have my second bonus action that I want to use here. And he just dies anyway. And I'm going to end my turn in the darkness. And the chances of him hitting me is going to be so low, I'll probably never get hit inside my own darkness. If Balthasar was still alive, he would not be able to cast any spells inside the darkness either, because you can't actually use spells into darkness. If you take a look at the tooltip, it says creatures cannot make ranged attacks into or out of it, which is really nice. Alright, so there's some undead around here, so I do want to show the channel oath charge. Control undead, what happens when you use this, you take control of them. However, I don't actually have control of what they do. They will just automatically attack things, so keep that in mind. That was my action, but I have 2 bonus actions here, so I could choose to attack, but I'd be at disadvantage. Or I could start using my offhand attack here and start attacking some more, which is what I'm going to do. Dang, that did a lot of damage. Let's do it again. And the reason that did a lot of damage, if you take a look, it said offhand attack. I got a critical. Got the RA hate. And I had the radiant damage. Now how I talked about your reactions earlier. You want to make sure all your reactions are up. I purposely left this one like that. That way it would automatically do it and not ask me to show what happens. Because now I only have 1 spell slot left. So you really want to make sure your reactions are on point. If not, you may accidentally waste spell slots. I'm going to end my turn. So even though I am inside the darkness, he did hit me, but the chances of it are super low. So do keep that in mind, but it's not impossible to get hit. So I'm not going to react. I don't want to waste my last spell slot. These guys aren't going to go inside the darkness though, because they don't even see the enemy, which is kind of funny because he's just kind of like chilling. So here I'm just going to lay on hands because I want to heal myself, and I'm going to do the greater healing. Pretty much get me back up to full, not quite, but close enough. And I'm just going to auto attack him some more with my offhand. I have 2 bonus actions, so I could use some oils if I wanted. There's no need though. I'm not going to Divine Smite because I want to save it. That was a crit, so now I am going to use it. And it did a good amount of damage. The whole reason I have this in my main hand though is to make sure I do get Shadow Soaked Blow, which is really nice. And because your offhand, with this being your offhand attack, there's a good amount of, like a good chance you're going to attack more often with your offhand twice. So it's nice to get that extra crit with your offhand. Alright, so I'm at a spell slots here, which is the downfall of this build is the spell slot usage, so keep that in mind. But because I am using the Hellfire Hand Crossbow, I do have options to just use some spells. And I'm going to do that. Wow, I missed a lot. That is unfortunate. But that's okay, because I can continue to attack. Wow, I'm surprised he hit me. I'm in the darkness. He must have a really good chance to hit me, even though he's blinded. Alright, so he's almost dead. So I have a couple options here. What do I want to do? Do I want to heal myself again? Do I want to just go straight up damage? I'm just going to do straight up damage. Because I know this turn I want to attack him with both my melee attacks, I'm going to put this on, and we're going to go to town. So just from that alone, you can see I also crit on him, which is really nice. So I can attack him again. Oh, another crit. My bonus action, offhand. And he's dead. Loot him. Alright, so now I'm going to actually leave the darkness. And I'm going to end my turn. I actually want this guy to attack me. For whatever reason, he's not attacking this enemy. Normally they would. He must be glitched at the moment. Take a look at my reactions. You see how my sneak attack's off? And I've had the option to sneak attack this whole time. Going back to your reactions, always make sure your sneak attacks will automatically do it if you want it. That way you don't have to manually choose it. All those times I was attacking him in darkness, I would have had the option for sneak attack with my main hand, but because I wasn't, I didn't have that option. Alright, so what I want to do now? Well, I could just finish these guys. I'm actually going to cancel my darkness. There's no need to have it right now if I didn't want it, because it does affect your allies as well, so keep that in mind. But, no, we'll go up inside and we'll attack this guy here. You can see the damage, just from the offhand, stuff like that. And I'll attack him again. And that's the fight. And that's basically how you use the build. You're kind of more like, imagine a rogue that can use magic, I guess is a good way to put it. And this guy will be under my control until I take a long rest. But that's how you use the build, guys. I hope this was useful. I hope me purposely like turning things on and off kind of helps showcase why having your reaction set up properly is a good thing. If you did learn a lot from this build, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. When it comes to endgame builds and how this works once you get to Act 3, right now you have 7 points Paladin, 3 points Rogue. If you did want to have Animate Dead to summon a little minion, you would want to put 2 more points into Paladin. If you would rather have 2 more points in the Rogue to get the extra sneak attack damage and Uncanny Dodge so you take even less damage, you would do it that way. Or if you simply just wanted 2 more feats, put 1 point Paladin, 1 point Rogue, and then you could do it that way as well. There are some endgame items that I will put up on screen now. The gauntlets here, these are going to give you 23 strength, meaning you could redistribute all your points when you do that. But do keep in mind, once you do that, you will need to renew your oath and then break it again. There's also a really fantastic offhand sword you can get in Act 3 that will literally allow you not to need the 2-weapon fighting style because you get it from the weapon itself.